my gosh, guys, the weather is literally giving me the most overpowered loot ever. That is so rare.
These are the funniest fake Minecraft speedruns of all time. The first speedrunner begins by crafting tools and finding a village, where he finds a potion of water breathing in this chest, which is not only impossible to find in a village chest, but remember this for later. The speedrunner then makes his way to find a ruined portal, but notice how dark the sky already is. A day in Minecraft lasts a full 10 minutes, while it's already nighttime just 4 minutes into the speedrun. And when the speedrunner reaches the ruined portal, notice these 2 blocks of crying obsidian, which seem to just disappear after a few seconds later. However, after replaying this in slow motion, we can clearly see the speedrunner cut the video. Now, once in the nether, the speedrunner spawns suspiciously close to a fortress, where he doesn't even get the achievement for entering into it, meaning he already visited this fortress before he started recording. And when the speedrunner goes to get blaze rods, look at the abnormal amount of blazes in the spawner, which could be explained by a sneakily placed second blaze spawner hiding in the roof, which he clearly placed using creative mode, which allows this speedrunner to get 7 rods super easily. But the runner still needs to find a bastion when the speedrunner decides to randomly add in a hand cam. However, he should have been more careful in editing, because at a brief second we can see a command which he used to locate this bastion, which explains him finding it so easily and getting pearls super fast. He then travels back to the overworld, where he jumps in a boat and uses his water breathing potion from earlier to dig down at a very specific spot, which just so happens to drop into the stronghold. This is the wall of a normal stronghold in Minecraft, but look at the wall in his speedrun, meaning he clearly messed with this in creative mode. Not to mention, it's missing a silverfish spawner in the end portal room, which explains him breaking the wall and finding a chest with extremely overpowered gear. And this makes the end fight super easy, so we're moving on. This next speedrunner is attempting the record for a 1.7.9 Minecraft speedrun. Remember the specific version that he's speedrunning. The run starts off and our speedrunner finds a desert village, where he goes to loot some beds. But do you notice something as he's breaking this hay? This is the hand size for a normal Minecraft skin versus a slim Minecraft skin, which he's using. But slim Minecraft skins were only released after 1.8, when the speedrunner claimed to be speedrunning Minecraft 1.7. This is obviously fake, as the speedrunner's trying to gain an advantage by running a newer version of Minecraft. He then loots the village and travels more, until he finds a mansion, which was also released way after 1.7 in Minecraft. But do you notice something strange about the mansion? The carpet here is light gray, instead of being all red, meaning the speedrunner clearly changed these blocks in creative mode. And it's no surprise when there's a chest filled with super overpowered items buried underneath. He then travels to find a ruined portal, where he gets the exact amount of obsidian he needs to complete it, and happens to spawn directly into a bastion. After collecting loot, the speedrunner begins to trade with the Piglin, and manages to get 32 ender pearls from a single Piglin, which is almost impossible. The speedrunner then proceeds to leave the nether, and you've got to be kidding me. And after entering the end, the run's normal, we're moving on. Next speedrunner starts off normally with the runner searching for a shipwreck, and the speedrunner is even bragging about how easy the run is gonna be.
Oh, this is about to be so easy.
But as the speedrunner is looting the chest, take a closer look at his face cam. The speedrunner appears to fix his hair. However, his character is moving at the exact same time, meaning this isn't actually his gameplay. Moving on with the run, the speedrunner continues by finding an underwater ruined portal and making his way into the nether, where he gets incredibly lucky by finding a bastion extremely quickly, and on top of that, a fortress extremely quickly too. But pause. This is the Minecraft leaderboard for 1.16 random seed in Minecraft. And if we look all the way down to position 100, does this gameplay look familiar? The speedrunner clearly put his face cam over this speedrunner's gameplay, which explains why the character still moved while his hands were clearly off the keyboard. And if his acting wasn't any worse, the speedrunner appears to be talking to someone off camera while he's literally fighting the Ender Dragon. This next speedrun begins with the runner mining wood and making some tools, where he locates a nearby village. But for a split second, we can see a very strange item in his inventory. Remember this for later. The speedrunner goes around the village houses until he reaches the blacksmith, where he not only finds a chest with a water bucket, but a portal? How is he at a lava pool? After forming his nether portal, he then enters into the nether, where he locates a nearby fortress, but only decides to kill a single blaze. And he also finds an ender pearl at a very suspicious and obviously fake chest in the fortress, which he clearly placed in creative mode. And when he turns around, he finds another portal, which leads him straight back to the nether portal. Now, with only one eye of ender, the speedrunner begins to locate the stronghold. And once he does, he digs down and enters the end portal room, where the end portal has 11 eyes of ender already placed, which has over a 1 in 9 billion chance of happening. But the speedrunner has no beds, so how is he gonna kill the ender dragon? Well, do you remember earlier in the speedrun where he had a very interesting item in his inventory? Well, it turns out to be a detonator, and I'll just let the footage speak for itself. This next speedrun begins with our speedrunner mining wood and making tools, but notice how he already has XP before he finishes breaking the wood, clearly showing that he tampered with the world before recording. He then makes his way to a nearby village, where he begins to loot beds and get hay, and they also find a chest that contains exactly 6 pieces of obsidian. Remember this for later. The speedrunner then decides to head to the nether, but doesn't decide to search for a ruins portal, but goes to a very specific spot on the grass that has clearly already been marked by this piece of dirt. But they only have 6 obsidian, when another portal clearly requires 10 to be created. And what the heck? This next speedrunner spawns in, but immediately there's something off. This is the angle when you spawn in for a normal Minecraft speedrun, but you can clearly see he is angled slightly facing up, meaning he's already generated this world. He then makes his way to a nearby village, where there is not 1, 2, but 3 iron golems, when a normal village only spawns a max of 1. So the speedrunner collects some beds and loots some chests before making his way to a nearby lava pool. And he starts to make the nether portal using a water bucket, but just seconds before we can see he didn't even have a water bucket in his inventory. But if you replay this clip in slow motion, you can see a slight cut in the recording, meaning the speedrunner got the water bucket off camera. The speedrunner then enters the nether, where he looks for a nearby fortress, and after collecting 7 blaze rods, he heads towards a bastion to trade for pearls. But take a closer look at this specific piglin, which seems just a little off. When comparing side by side to a real piglin, you can tell that it's literally just another player in a piglin skin, which explains him getting 32 ender pearls from a single trade. He then makes his way back to the overworld, where he spawns into a completely normal beach, but there's 1 piece of sandstone, which the speedrunner clearly marked out earlier in the run, which explains him digging straight down into the stronghold. So he puts his eyes into the portal, and the rest is normal. We're moving on. Now this next speedrun might be one of the funniest I've ever seen. Like the first 2, this one starts out pretty normally, and our speedrunner runs to collect some wood, but he decides to break this random block, and guess what happens to be under? A chest with an insane amount of diamonds and iron. Anyway, we can look past it as our speedrunner is making his way over to a village. He even starts to break beds, which seems pretty legit. Now, after the village, our speedrunner decides to dig straight down, and then lands in a room with an underground ruin portal. Okay, wait, is this even possible? With some creative mode shenanigans out of the way, our speedrunner is somehow in the nether, and things get intense when he has to fight some blazes. Oops, yeah, I don't think this guy was supposed to die. Not to fear, because our speedrunner spawns back in and is suddenly in the stronghold. What is going on? After some more searching, he reaches the end portal and is in the end now. I'm so confused. The speedrunner decides to use the bed strategy to kill the ender dragon, and it actually worked, so congrats with that. Just not on any of the other cheating you did in the speedrun. Next speedrunner starts off by breaking wood and making some tools, where they then find a nearby village, where they enter a blacksmith house and find an enchanting table, which don't spawn in blacksmiths. He also then conveniently finds a netherite sword and bottles of enchanting in the chest right beside it, which have clearly been placed in creative mode. Now after enchanting his sword, he looks to kill an iron golem. Is that a diamond golem that literally drops diamonds when killed? He then needs to find a nearby ruined portal. And is that just me, or does that not look like a real ruined portal at all? And the portal is assured to be fake due to there being a trap chest instead of a normal chest. Now once entering the nether, the speedrunner needs to find a fortress, where he digs into this wall, turns around, and magically finds one. But this fortress was clearly not here when he spawned in. The speedrunner then finds a blaze spawner. However, this is clearly not where a normal blaze spawner is usually located, meaning the speedrunner placed this here in creative mode. After collecting all of his blaze rods, the speedrunner makes the interesting choice of heading back to the overworld, without ever going to a bastion where normal speedrunners get ender pearls. However, when he spawns back in, he somehow has 16 ender pearls, which he must have just gotten off camera. The speedrunner then attempts a known speedrun technique known as triangulation. However, when comparing his technique to a real speedrun, he clearly has no idea what he's doing and he's just throwing the eyes in random directions. But he somehow still comes up with the exact spot to dig down from. And what do you know? This leads him straight to the end portal room. The speedrunner clearly didn't use triangulation, but located this using spectator mode. And once the speedrunner enters the end, he finds a random chest with beds where he spawns, which is clearly fake, so let's just move on. This next speedrunner begins by crafting some tools and finding a desert pyramid, where he starts to loot chests, but take a closer look at this specific chest. There is a red outline around the lock, meaning it's a trap chest, not a real chest, meaning he placed it in creative mode. And the speedrunner also gets a blaze rod in the chest, which is impossible. Blaze rods can't spawn in desert temples. And when he finds a nearby lava pool, the speedrunner is having a lot of trouble building the portal. So he decides to look up a YouTube tutorial on how to do it during his speedrun, which would clearly be wasting way too much time in a real speedrun. After finishing the portal, he makes his way to the nether, where he finds a fortress and collects some blaze rods. But when he goes to the bastion, he only collects 4 ender pearls instead of the usual 12 to 16. Remember the specific amount of pearls for later. The speedrunner makes his way back to the overworld, where he immediately digs down at a seemingly random spot, which just so happens to drop him straight into the stronghold. But take a closer look at the floor. This is the floor of a real stronghold, which clearly doesn't have any of the cobblestone in this stronghold, which was clearly placed as a way to lead the speedrunner straight to the end portal room. But wait, this end portal looks strange. Why are there only 4 frames when a normal end portal contains 12? Well, remember when the speedrunner only collected 4 pearls earlier in the run? There's no way that actually works. This next run starts with our speedrunner mining wood, making tools, and sailing in a boat, where he locates a nearby shipwreck and begins to loot. He then travels further on his boat until he locates a ruined portal, which suspiciously is already completely filled in. And he even happens to find flint and steel in the chest. And as he goes to teleport from the portal, how is he in the end? Well, it's not only impossible to take a nether portal into the end, but you can't even light a flint and steel while in the end. This next speedrunner starts off by mining wood and crafting some tools, where he then finds a nearby shipwreck where he finds some pretty good loot, except for the fact that it's impossible for obsidian to spawn in a shipwreck chest. He then uses the obsidian to complete a nearby ruined portal, where he spawns in right next to a fortress. Now after collecting his 7 blaze rods, he happens to find a bastion right next door, where he finds an abnormal amount of piglins and manages to get 4 stacks of ender pearls, which is clearly impossible. He then makes his way back to the overworld, where he digs down at a very specific block, which just so happens to drop him straight into the stronghold. And after entering the end, how has the Ender Dragon already lost some health? And why have all of the crystals been removed from the pillars? Let's just move on. Now, the next speedrun we're gonna be taking a look at is probably the weirdest of them all. And that is because this speedrunner doesn't try to hide anything that he does. And let me tell you, he does a lot of fake things that don't really make sense. Anyway, the run begins and we're already off to a bad start. In the bottom left corner, you can clearly see a message saying that he set his game mode to survival, implying that before he started recording, he was indeed in creative. Oh, and also, just look at the chat. I mean, he's not trying to hide anything at all. Anyway, he makes it to a desert temple and somehow already has insane gear in his inventory, and he even has 3 potion effects on. Like, bro, the speedrun just started. He then proceeds to enchant all of his armor, which is almost never done in a real speedrun, especially at the slow pace that he's doing it at. Now, after running a few more commands, he finds himself already in the end, and things start to get even weirder. To begin, he starts to fly around and break all of the crystals, then goes down to the center and just starts placing down an absurd amount of TNT, which is honestly completely unnecessary. To top it all off, he gives himself an insane strength effect that can most likely obliterate the dragon. And yeah, the dragon stood no chance against his speedrun cheats. Now, technically, this run could be considered over, but our speedrunner friend still wants to have some fun. So he just randomly spawns in a wither and tries to fight it. And the cherry on top of this entire speedrun is that even after we saw all of the cheats that he did, he makes sure to change his game mode back to survival before he finishes. I mean, what a great speedrun, but unfortunately, yeah, this speedrun was fake. This next speedrunner literally spawns right into a village, and then finds a netherite house right next to where he spawns. This doesn't even exist in Minecraft. Either way, he goes to loot the chest inside, and it has full netherite armor. And he even gets bedrock in survival Minecraft. Now it's time for the speedrunner to travel to the nether, but he randomly finds a hole that leads directly into a nether portal. This is so obviously fake. Once in the nether, our speedrunner finds a fake piglin and then magically gets 64 pearls in his inventory. How is this even possible? And even crazier, when he gets back into the overworld, he finds a fully lit end portal sitting out in the open. And then in the end, the speedrunner literally finds Herobrine. I guess the speedrunner then used commands because the ender dragon is dead and the run is over. The next one starts and our speedrunner spawns next to a village, where he happens to find some insane loot in his very first chest, including blaze rods, which isn't possible to spawn in a village chest. He also happens to loot a ton of obsidian. But do you notice something? The red textures around the lock of a chest clearly show that it's a trap chest, which don't spawn in villages, meaning he obviously placed this in creative. And instead of making his way to the nether portal now, he travels away until he comes to a very strange area of blocks, which was clearly tampered with by the speedrunner to build another portal. And this is made obvious when he magically spawns directly into a fortress. But the speedrunner already has blaze rods, so why would he need to be in a fortress? Because in this fortress, it happens to contain a piglin spawner instead of a blaze spawner, which obviously isn't possible in Minecraft, making it incredibly easy for our speedrunner to get all the pearls that he needs. And the speedrunner also finds a pre-lit nether portal conveniently on his way out of the fortress, which is clearly different from the one that spawned him in, which teleports him straight into the end portal room with the silverfish spawner missing. And the speedrunner crafts his eyes and begins to light the end portal until, wait, is this guy seriously getting DM'd by his mom on Discord? And now he has to go do some chores? Well, I guess something happened because the speedrun just cuts off there. This next speedrunner spawns in right next to a desert pyramid. But why is the floor filled with sand and not sandstone? And the center block is lapis lazuli, not blue terracotta, meaning the speedrunner clearly messed with it before recording. And when he drops down, there isn't a pressure plate at all. And everyone knows desert temples have a pressure plate. And of course, every chest has extremely overpowered items. After leaving the village, the speedrunner needs to find a ruined portal. So why is he digging down down at this random lake? Well, of course, the digging leads him straight down to a ruins portal. He then spawns into the nether directly next to a fortress, where he doesn't even bother to fight any blazes, but instead finds 8 blaze rods in a fortress chest, which is clearly impossible as they don't even spawn here. He then finds a bastion right next to the fortress, and after trading with piglins, he gets all of the pearls he needs and heads back to his portal. But on the way back, he notices a very strange shape in the ground, which has clearly been tampered with for a nether portal to be built here. And after digging down straight off spawn, he drops straight into the strongholds. And after lighting the portal, the speedrunner spawns directly onto the surface instead of the black obsidian platform like a real speedrun. The rest is normal, we're moving on. This next speedrun seems to appear normal at first, with our speedrunner spawning into a village. But all of a sudden, the speedrunner immediately digs down from the village and drops down straight into a stronghold. But after a little search on the web, I found this exact seed straight out of a YouTube video called the best Minecraft seeds for speedrunning, which explains this incredibly lucky seed. And when he enters the portal room, there is 10 eyes already in the portal, which has a 1 in a trillion chance of happening. And take a look at the edges here. They aren't filled with lava like a normal portal room, meaning the speedrunner tampered with them in creative mode, which explains why he breaks this specific block, leading him to a random chest that has the perfect amount of eyes that he needs, and makes his way into the end. I've seen enough, let's get to the next speedrun. This next speedrunner begins with the speedrunner spawning right next to a village, where he already has XP before the run starts. And after collecting some hay, why is there not 1, but 2, 3, 4, and 5 iron golems in the village, when a normal village only contains 1? He then travels to a set of village houses, where one of the doors has somehow already been opened. And then he finds 11 ender pearls in the village chests, which is impossible as ender pearls can't spawn in these village chests, meaning he clearly placed them before the run started. And when he goes to kill the iron golem to get some iron, he doesn't get the achievement for collecting it, meaning he had already messed with the golems before he started recording. He then finds a nearby shipwreck to go loot, where he happens to find 9 blaze rods, which is impossible. Blaze rods can't spawn in shipwreck chests. He then locates a nearby ruins portal, where he finds the exact amount of obsidian needed to complete it. But he already has eyes of ender. Why does he need to go to the nether at all? Is that even possible? And after entering the end, the run's pretty normal, so we're moving on. This next speedrunner starts off the run by literally spawning on top of a village. And after that, the speedrunner begins to loot the village by opening chests and collecting beds. However, when he goes into this house, there's a random end portal frame on the floor. Yeah, this is getting a bit suspicious. After looting, the speedrunner decides it's time to go mining. However, on the way, the speedrunner finds an ender chest out in the open, which has a random diamond sword inside of it. Yeah, bro, this is getting a little bit too fake. After this, the speedrunner informs us that he has to go for a bit. And when the video cuts to when he's back, he's at a fully built nether portal. Once in the nether, our speedrunner decides he needs to go find a bastion. However, on the way, he finds a random gold block on the ground. And after digging it up with a diamond pickaxe he spawned in from earlier, he finds a chest with both blaze rods and ender pearls. This is so fake. With that, the speedrunner can leave and go back to the overworld. When he does, he literally just teleports himself to the stronghold and changes his game mode to spectator to find the end portal. Once in the end, I don't even think our speedrunner tries to hide the fact that he's cheating. He puts down an anvil and gives himself a power 5 bow, and then just flies around and kills the ender dragon in creative mode. What a hilariously fake speedrun, but this next one is even crazier. The run begins and immediately our speedrunner spawns into a village and finds 64 god apples and full netherite armor in his very first chest. After that, he goes into another part of the village and this time finds even more overpowered loot, including potions, obsidians, and flint and steel. And he even finds a random diamond tree. Those aren't even real in Minecraft. He now makes his way into the nether by building and lighting a nether portal. But he stumbles upon a random hole known as the Hagen hole, which is apparently a new feature added by Notch. And after opening the chest in this random hole, our speedrunner miraculously has full blaze rods and eyes of ender. And he's now ready to travel to the overworld. There's no way this is real. Once in the overworld, our speedrunner gets so bored that he teleports himself to the stronghold. And once in the stronghold, our speedrunner finds the most cursed end portal I've probably ever seen. Like, bro, what even is this? I guess it kind of worked though, because he finally reaches the nether and kills the ender dragon by flying around and using creative mode. This guy could not stop cheating in the speedrun. This next speedrun starts off with our speedrunner literally spawning on a diamond block. And when he turns around, he is looking directly at a village. This is getting weird. Our speedrunner then decides to loot the village by collecting some beds and opening some chests, and then decides to search for a ruined portal. But on the way, our speedrunner falls into a random hole that just so happens to contain a nether portal. I can't make this up. Once in the nether, our speedrunner travels and finds a stronghold. But wait, why is he in creative mode? And why is there a chest with a perfect amount of blaze rods waiting for him? This has to be fake. He then makes his way over to a bastion to try to find some ender pearls, but he decides to fake this as well. Our speedrunner stops and faces a random block. He then cuts the video, and when he returns, there's a stack of ender pearls waiting for him. And he also spots a random nether portal floating in midair. He makes his way into the nether portal and is finally back in the overworld. But our speedrunner gets so bored that he simply teleports straight to the stronghold using a simple command. He fills the ender portal with eyes of ender, and he is now in the end. And he decides to change his game mode to creative and build one of the most overpowered swords using Anvil and a sharpness 5 book. And after flying around to break all the end crystals with creative mode, he can easily kill the dragon with this OP sword. This speedrun was hilarious. This next speedrunner starts off by spawning directly next to a village, where he goes to loot various village houses. But when he gets to this specific village house, do you notice something? This door is a spruce door, not an oak door, meaning the speedrunner clearly messed with this village house in creative, which explains the extremely overpowered loot he gets in this chest. And the speedrunner doesn't even get the achievement when collecting the obsidian, meaning he had already gotten the obsidian before recording. He then continues by going to kill the iron golem, where he gets an insane amount of iron after killing it, which is simply impossible as iron can only drop a max of 5. The speedrunner then makes his way to find a lava pool, where he attempts to build a nether portal, which doesn't seem to be working. But then suddenly, the nether portal is completely finished. However, when putting this footage into an audio software, we can clearly see where the speedrunner cut this video. The rest is normal, so we're moving on. The run begins, and immediately our speedrunner breaks down into this incredibly strange room, which contains a bunch of animals, emeralds, and gold, as well as a chest with basically everything that you need for a speedrun. The speedrunner then goes ahead and attempts to build an end portal, but fails miserably. So instead, he just cuts the video himself and teleports straight into the end. Once our speedrunner's in the end, he breaks his way out and begins his search for the dragon, which doesn't take too long as he is in plain sight. But wait, the speedrunner actually manages to die in the end, even with all of his overpowered gear. Honestly, he kind of deserves it for all of the fake things he did in the speedrun. This next speedrun wastes 0 time in revealing that the speedrun is fake, because the speedrunner literally starts off the video by spawning directly into a village. And what do you know? The first chest that he opens is completely 100% fake. I can't take this anymore. The speedrunner exits the first house of the village and out to a random hole that he finds in the ground. And after digging down, we see that this exact same path just so happens to lead directly to a pre-lit end portal. These speedrunners never learn. The speedrunners enter the end to a perfectly built staircase waiting for him. And somehow the speedrunner also has fly on, so he literally just flies around the end to try to break break all of the end crystals. After successfully breaking all of them, he moves his focus over to the Ender Dragon himself. She has a very easy time killing after spawning in beds from creative mode and destroying the dragon. And after that, he simply jumps in and finishes the speedrun. While hilarious, this was clearly fake. This next speedrunner starts off the run spawning right in front of a village, where he gets some hay and loots some chests. He then finds a nearby lava pool and begins to craft another portal, but take a closer look at his face cam during this process. When the speedrunner goes to stretch, we can clearly see his hands off the keyboard, even though his character is moving at this exact time. If you look even closer, it appears the speedrunner has a controller in his hand. However, earlier in the run when he opened his inventory, we could clearly see a mouse cursor being used. This all points to the speedrunner using pre-recorded footage but pretending like he's playing. So he enters the nether, but lava is already flowing as he spawns in, meaning he's already been to the nether before recording. He also doesn't get an achievement when he enters the nether fortress. After collecting blaze rods, he heads to the bastion where he gets ender pearls, and back to the overworld where he begins to throw eyes of ender. But notice how when the speedrunner throws the eye, he deliberately turns 90 degrees and runs in the other direction, which makes no sense because the eyes actually directly lead to the location of the stronghold. But he digs down at this specific spot and finds an end portal that's clearly been built in creative mode. This next speedrun starts off normally with the speedrunner gathering some tools using wood. He then travels around to which he finds a ruined portal and finds a perfect amount of obsidian, enough to fill the portal. And when he spawns in, wait, is this the new ancient city in Minecraft 1.19? Nether portals don't take you there. And why is the portal filled with diamond instead of reinforced deep slate? The speedrunner obviously tampered with this in creative mode. This next speedrunner spawns in, but pay close attention to the join message in the bottom left corner. This message can only appear when playing on a server, which is not allowed on a speedrun. And after getting some hay and looting some chests, notice this strange black figure in the corner, which clearly resembles another player's leg. Remember this for later. The speedrunner makes his way to a ruined portal, but does not seem to have any flint and steel to light it. But when he turns around, it's magically floating there on the ground when it was clearly not there before. He's also missing one piece of obsidian for the nether portal, but when he turns back around, it's there too. However, take a closer look at the sky when you can see some particles floating around, which is a byproduct of using an invisibility potion, which is obviously coming from the player we saw earlier in the speedrun. Also, when putting the footage into an audio software, you can see the exact point when the invisibility potion was drank. So he spawns into the nether and begins to look for a fortress, where he starts to fight blazes to try to get some blaze rods. But even though we only see him kill 4 blazes, he somehow has 8 blaze rods in his inventory. Now this would mean each blaze dropped 2 rods, even though they have a max drop limit of only 1. The speedrunner clearly messed with the loot drop percentages. He then makes his way to a bastion, where he starts to throw gold at piglins to try to get ender pearls, and miraculously gets 16 ender pearls from only 1 trade. But after putting the footage into an editing software, we can see the pearls are coming from slightly above the piglin, not from the piglin itself, meaning his invisible friend from earlier is actually the one throwing the pearls. He then makes his way back to the overworld, where a very specific spot has been marked out to make another portal, which of course teleports the speedrunner straight to the end portal room. And when he gets into the end, notice how half of the pillars are completely missing, and the ones that are there don't have any crystals. So the runner pulls out his bow and begins to shoot at the dragon when a random sword drops from the sky called the Dragon Killer, which was clearly from his friend, and I think the name speaks for itself. This next speedrun is probably one of the fastest on this list so far. The run starts off and immediately our speedrunner spawns in to collect some wood, and after finding a village just a couple seconds later, he begins to loot the chests that have some pretty suspicious amounts of obsidian. And using this obsidian, he built a nether portal straight away. Yeah, this is getting a bit sus. Moving along, he enters the nether and conveniently spawns into a fortress right away, and the blazes also happen to drop 64 blaze rods. This is definitely fake. Our speedrunner doesn't even bother to travel to the bastion because somehow he got 16 ender pearls. So I guess he's heading back to the overworld to look for the strongholds. Once in the overworld, our speedrunner spawns in a very weird spot, which is actually above the ocean, and you guessed it, right above the stronghold. stronghold. Either way, our speedrunner breaks in, travels to the end portal room, and suddenly is making his way into the end only 3 minutes in. But our speedrunner has something different to try when he reaches the end. Instead of trying to fight the dragon normally, he applies a strength effect, which is extremely overpowered. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this speaks for itself. This next speedrun starts off by spawning on a mountain, but as he's climbing down, we see something a little suspicious. The shape of a nether portal is outlined in the wall right as he spawned in. Keep this in mind for later. The speedrunner eventually finds a desert village in which he loots. He then travels all the way back towards his spawn and this really strange structure, which has clearly been tampered with. And nah, what? Luckily, this next fake speedrun is the most normal one we've seen so far in this video. The run begins and immediately our speedrunner goes and breaks wood, creates himself a crafting table, and makes himself some tools. He turns around and happens to be right next to a village, which is kind of suspicious. However, the speedrunner simply breaks and collects beds in the village, and none of the chests have any weird loot, so far it seems real. Later, the speedrunner types in chat and mentions that they must use the bathroom, but when the video resumes, the speedrunner is suddenly in the nether, which is definitely the first obvious fake part of this video. And how is the speedrunner in creative mode? Once he sees that he's in creative mode, he explains that it must have been a glitch and he takes advantage of it by teleporting to both the nether fortress for blaze rods and the bastion to collect ender pearls. This guy is insane. So now it's time to head back to the overworld. So the speedrunner returns and enters a nether portal. But when he spawns back into the overworld, he's suddenly right next to a stronghold, which is incredibly rare. He then changes his game mode to spectator, which is definitely not allowed in search of the end portal. And once he finds it, he puts in the eyes of ender and is already headed towards the end. I think at this point the speedrunner gives up on trying to make the speedrun look real, and instead just flies around in the end, creates an enchanted netherite sword, and kills the ender dragon with his pure force. After a while, he finally succeeds and the dragon is dead, and the speedrunner jumps in to celebrate. While the speedrun is fake, you can't lie that it was incredibly funny and hilarious. We finally start off again on a good note with this next speedrunner spawning in and breaking some wood. And after chopping down a tree, he goes on a bit of a journey to take a swim. He then decides to travel further to find a cave. Wait, where did he get 22 obsidian from? He hasn't mined this entire speedrun. I guess we'll just let it slide for now. He then travels up a hill and breaks down at a random block in the snow. And what do you know? There's literally a chest buried underneath this very block that just so happens to have 16 ender pearls. And where did this dude get a yellow sword from? After this, he's finally ready to head to the nether, so he decides to build an end portal. But this guy literally finds an end crystal in the nether. I've actually never seen this before. And underneath it is a chest with so many blaze rods. And just like that, the guy is out of the nether. Moving forward, he finds an end portal not in the strongholds, but out in the open on the snow. And then kills the ender dragon with this quote, stupidly OP bow. This speedrun was honestly super hilarious, but this next one is even better. This next speedrunner spawns in right next to a pillager outpost, but notice how none of the pillagers are attacking him even though the speedrunner punches one. Because if you take a closer look at his hotbar, his hearts are completely edited in. And the speedrunner is actually in creative mode, because mobs don't fight back in creative mode. He then finds the chest to loot the outpost. But when comparing it to a real pillager outpost, the chest is placed just one block to the right, meaning the speedrunner accidentally placed it in the wrong spot in creative mode. The speedrunner then finds a nearby village, but only decides to loot one specific house, which has a netherite sword, which is impossible. Netherite swords can't spawn in village chests. He then finds a nearby lava pool where a spot for a nether portal has clearly been marked. And it's no surprise that this location leads him right into a fortress. However, he finds a blaze spawner in a very unusual spot. It's obvious blaze spawners can't spawn here, meaning he placed this in creative before recording. And even though the runner only kills 2 blazes, he gets 7 rods in his inventory. Let's just move on. This next speedrunner is attempting the world's record for 1.8.9 random seed. But watch closely. The run starts off pretty normally with our speedrunner spawning in a village. But do you notice that? In a split second frame, we can see a glimpse of a frog in Minecraft, which not only doesn't spawn in the biome he's in, but doesn't exist in Minecraft 1.8.9, the specific version this speedrunner is running for. The speedrun continues by collecting beds and searching for a ruined portal. Finally, the speedrunner finds it, and once the speedrunner spawns in the nether, we see this. The updated textures for netherrack and blocks that don't exist in Minecraft 8.9. Clearly, the speedrunner tried to get an advantage by running a newer version of Minecraft, but submitting it for 1.8.9. This next speedrunner spawns right in front of a chest, and oh no. I do kind of feel bad for this village, I'm not gonna lie. Did he really have to take out the villagers like that? Let's just hope he's more chill in the nether. That was pretty fast. Now this is about to be crazy. And there goes all the crystals. Yeah, the Ender Dragon stands no chance. Well, I guess he just finished that speedrun. I don't even know how to describe this next speedrun, so we're just gonna head straight into it. The runner loads into his world and finds the Titanic. Oh no, this is about to get bad. After looting some wood, he makes his way into the Titanic to look for some loot. What do you know? He finds a chest with literally the most overpowered loot ever. He then makes his way out of the Titanic and finds a desert pyramid. Why does this look nothing like a real one? Once he goes inside, we can clearly see this is not a desert pyramid. He then finds another random structure, which he claims is a village house. And I don't even need to explain why this is fake. I'll save you some time and skip to the end of the run. I guess the speedrunner just got bored, so he doesn't even kill the Ender Dragon, but instead blows himself up with some beds. These speedrunners are cheating way too much. This next runner literally spawns directly next to a nether portal, and the chest right beside it just so happens to have a flint and steel. How convenient. The speedrunner then decides to take a break and go fishing. Why?
12 seconds later.
Wait, how is this guy even doing this? I guess our speedrunner has full diamond armor after literally spawning it in with a fishing rod. Now, before he goes back into the nether portal, he decides to dig an unnecessary amount of dirt. And when he spawns into the nether, he also spawns right into the fortress, with a ton of blazes waiting right in front of him. This is obviously fake. He then begins his journey to try to find piglins to trade with for some ender pearls, and actually finds some, so he begins to throw his gold at them, and then literally gets the luckiest trade in Minecraft history. How many stacks of ender pearls in that? There is no way this is real. I guess our speedrunner has everything he needs from the nether, so he makes his way back to the overworld. And I guess this is the luckiest Minecraft player ever, because he spawns back into the overworld only 20 blocks away from the stronghold. And you won't believe this, but the end portal is already completely filled, something that has a 1 in a trillion chance of happening. And once he reaches the end, one of the strangest things I've ever seen in Minecraft happens. The screen literally flashes white and suddenly the dragon is dead. What is even going on? I'm giving this fake speedrun a 10 out of 10. This next speedrunner spawns in immediately facing straight up, so we already know that it's fake. Then he suddenly finds a village a few seconds later. But wait, is that a diamond house? There's no way this is real. Luckily, things get less suspicious as our speedrunner goes around a village and collects beds. Wait, where did he get all these beds from? It's clear the speedrunner cut the video, went into creative mode, and got the beds. It's obviously fake. Anyways, it's time for the speedrunner to travel to the nether. Okay, you have to be joking. There's a nether portal out in the open? This isn't even possible in Minecraft. Once in the nether, our speedrunner miraculously spawns right into a fortress, which is incredibly rare. After he continues to kill blazes, something very odd happens. He somehow gets 8 blaze rods in his inventory, but we can clearly see that he only killed 4. And things get worse when he somehow gets all 16 ender pearls randomly in the overworld. I guess it's time for him to locate the stronghold, but unsurprisingly, he fakes this also. Our speedrunner digs down randomly into this hole, cuts the video, and then suddenly is in the stronghold. It's so obvious this speedrun is fake. Once he finally reaches the end, our speedrunner somehow has a power 5 bow and is flying. This speedrun can't get any worse. It's pretty clear the speedrun is fake, but this next one might be even funnier. Next run begins with our speedrunner spawning into a seemingly normal world. worlds. And he even has a timer in the corner so we can tell if he was cheating or not. Either way, he spawns in and begins to make his way to search for a village. And about 30 seconds later, he finds one. But you guys probably won't see this coming. Instead of looting the village, he skips by all of the houses and makes his way to a completely filled nether portal. There's no way this is real. When he enters the portal, he finally spawns into the nether and spawns right in front of a pre-dug hole with a ton of piglins. I guess he begins to trade his gold with the piglins because a few seconds later, he has a stack of ender pearls. This guy, man. It's now time for him to make his way to a bastion. And what do you know? He conveniently finds one directly next to where he spawns in. And when he goes to kill one of the blazes, he gets some blaze rods. But not the normal amount of blaze rods. He literally gets 64 from one blaze. Literally isn't possible. He now makes his way back into the overworld, and this guy is literally only 3 minutes in. But he randomly decides to go to sleep at a village. I can't with this dude. So now he's finally on his search to look for a stronghold, but takes a quick pit stop at a desert village. And you won't believe it. This guy finds end portal frames randomly in this chest, and then proceeds to build an end portal in the middle of a desert. Once in the end, it seems like our speedrunner is having a bit of trouble. So when the dragon perches, this guy literally swings at him with a netherite hoe. This guy literally finished the run in under 8 minutes. Wait, I forgot this run was fake. The next run begins with our speedrunner spawning into a village and looting a ruined portal chest, which would be completely normal until you realize it's impossible for fire resistance to spawn here. Remember the fire resistance for later. He then grabs his loot and searches for an iron golem to kill. But why is there not 1, but 2, 3, and 4 iron golems in the village, when a normal village only contains 1? He makes his way back to the ruined portal and into the nether, where the speedrunner drinks his fire resistance and jumps into a very certain lava pool, which suddenly drops the speedrunner right into the middle of a fortress. Once in the fortress, the speedrunner begins to search for a blaze spawner, but there seems to be quite a few more blazes than normal, which is explained if you look closely in the top right corner of his screen, where a second blaze spawner has been placed in creative mode. After collecting his blaze rods, the speedrunner needs to find a bastion, but pay close attention to the specific blocks on the wall, because after turning around, the speedrunner miraculously finds himself a bastion. And while the cut is not clearly noticeable, we could clearly see beforehand that there was not a bastion in sight. Now the rest of the run's pretty normal, so we're moving on. Next, speedrunner wastes no time revealing that the run is fake. As our speedrunner spawns in, he spawns directly next to a ruined portal, and the chest miraculously has 8 ender pearls and 2 obsidian, the exact amount he needs to finish the portal. With that incredible luck, he can finish the portal and go to the nether. And once in the nether, our speedrunner spawns directly into a fortress. And wait, where did he get 15 blaze rods from? As he begins to leave the fortress, there is a perfectly lit nether portal just waiting for him. This guy's already in the overworld. The speedrunner then focuses on finding the end and the strongholds. Wait, why is there a random sign and diamond block there? And how did he just spawn into the stronghold? Our speedrunner finally finds the end portal and makes his way into the end. But why does this ender dragon have like no health at all? And where did he get 69 levels from? Now all the speedrunner has left to do is kill the ender dragon with one swing of his sword, and his run is complete. This next speedrun starts off with a bit of a cocky speedrunner.
Bro, this speedrun's gonna be so easy.
Where he goes to loot a chest and builds himself some tools to use. But while he's taking his boat out to sea, move your focus towards the chat. Why is the language set to Serbian when the speedrunner clearly speaks English? Remember this for later. The speedrunner then continues by traveling underwater, crafting a portal, and entering the nether. And the speedrunner manages to find both a bastion collecting some ender pearls, as well as a fortress collecting some blaze rods. But pause. This is the leaderboard on the actual speedrun.com website for 1.16 RSG in Minecraft. And if we take a look at the second best time ever recorded, does this gameplay look familiar? The speedrunner literally put his face cam over an existing world record speedrun, and when comparing side by side, this is just hilariously fake, and submitted the run to the real speedrun.com. This next speedrunner starts off by mining for some wood, crafting some tools, and going down into a cave to look for lava, where the speedrunner finds a diamond creeper. Uh-oh. This next fake speedrun is probably the craziest one we've seen yet. Our speedrunner spawns in and is fairly close to a village. And after making his way over, he begins to loot the chests in the village. And like the previous speedruns, this guy finds some incredibly overpowered loot in the first chest that he opens. These speedrunners will never learn. After that, the speedrunner finds a diamond tree just outside the village, and a random stack of eyes of ender sitting in the grass. And after that, the speedrunner decides to blow up the village with TNT. This guy isn't messing around. He then decides to build an end portal from scratch and out in the open. And he succeeds, so he is finally in the end. And wait, why is there a completely random character waiting for him? Now I guess he wasn't much help because the speedrunner actually dies in the end. This is hilarious. No need to fear though, as our speedrunner respawns and goes back into the end. However, I think he is tired of dying, so he decides to change his game mode to creative, equip an extremely overpowered netherite sword, and fly around the end chasing the dragon. And he succeeds just a minute later to kill the ender dragon, and even taunts him in the chat. What an interesting speedrun. That was obviously fake. This next speedrun begins with our speedrunner literally facing straight up. He then turns around and finds a dirt path that leads directly to a village. This is getting weird. After a while, the speedrunner types in chat that he's feeling lucky, and he then proceeds to dig down at a random hole, which just so happens to drop him into water, and next to him is a fully lit nether portal. And when he spawns into the nether, he spawns directly into a fortress. I can't make this up. Once he gets to the fortress, our speedrunner then informs us that he has to restart his computer. Okay. And when the video returns, he's in creative mode, no blazes are left, and there's 11 blaze rods sitting in front of him. And after this, the speedrunner literally forgets to cut the video because we can clearly see him teleport to a bastion. Moving forward in the run, he gathers his ender pearls from the bastion and makes his way back into the overworld. But when he spawns in, he's having a bit of trouble moving around. So he changes game mode to creative, locates a stronghold, changes his game mode back to spectator, and flies straight to the end portal. Well, that all happened quite quickly. Take a guess. How do you think he will kill the ender dragon? A, use beds. B, use a bow, or C, set up a completely useless TNT and lava trap that doesn't even work and proceed to blow himself up. Yeah, this speedrun is over. This next speedrunner might be the luckiest that I've ever seen. The run starts off, and behold, both a ruined portal and a village right where he spawns. He gathers beds from the village and also begins to craft tools before making his way to the ruined portal, where it just so happens to have the exact amount of obsidian needed to finish the portal. He spawns into the nether directly into a fortress, and after collecting his blaze rods, just a few blocks over is an entire bastion to himself. And after collecting ender pearls through trades, his luck must end here. Wait, he spawned right into the end portal room? This can't be real. And after a little bit of searching online, I found this exact same Minecraft seed straight off a website called the 10 best 1.9 Minecraft seeds. But wait, as soon as the speedrunner places his eyes and heads to the end, why does it say that the ender dragon has 0 health left? And is there even a dragon in this world? Well, I guess he got even more lucky and the speedrun just ends there. The next run starts normally, as our speedrunner is in a completely empty field and is in survival mode. Wait, maybe I spoke too soon. Is that a chest surrounded by diamond blocks? And why is this chest filled with so many totems? This is fake. He then uses the obsidian from the chest to build himself a nether portal. In less than 1 minute, this guy is already in the nether. Once he spawns into the nether, he begins to travel and look for a bastion. But on his way, he finds a random chest hidden in the side of one of the walls, which just so happens to have stacks of blade rods and a perfect 16 ender pearls. This guy literally forgot to cut the video while he was cheating. So I guess he's now back into the overworld and now searching for the stronghold. But he just gets tired of searching, so he pulls out the chat and types in a command, which miraculously leads him straight to the stronghold. And wait, is this guy literally using hacks in the speedrun? He finally fills in the ender portal with this trusty Eyes of Ender, but before he kills anything, he literally just cuts off the video. This guy was caught cheating and faking his speedrun. This next speedrun begins and the runner spawns directly next to a desert temple, where he already has 1 XP. And after entering the pyramid, the center block is blue concrete, not blue terracotta, showing us the speedrunner had previously messed with it before recording. And when the speedrunner drops down inside the temple, he's greeted with OP items from every chest and doesn't light off any TNT after stepping on the pressure plate. He continues the run by making his way to a nearby village. And for a brief second when the speedrunner checks his inventory, we can spot a singular commands block hidden in the corner, which is not only impossible to get into survival, but we'll see what he does with this later. After looting the village, he makes his way to find a ruined portal, where he has just the right amount of obsidian to finish it. And once the speedrunner enters the nether, he spawns directly next to a fortress. But scratch that. The speedrunner instead decides to head back to the overworld, craft himself a boat, and sail away in a random direction towards land. He then finds something strange. Out of an entire beach of normal sand, there is a singular piece of sandstone, to which the speedrunner happens to dig down from and lands directly in the end portal room, showing us that he clearly tried to mark the spot with something that he didn't want us to see. But there's a problem. Where is the speedrunner supposed to get his Eyes of Ender from? Well, do you remember the command block from earlier? It's gone. And instead, there's a button on the wall that activates a command which gives the speedrunner 11 Eyes of Ender, clearly showing us he used this command block to get these pearls. And after he enters the end, the fight's pretty normal, so we're moving on. Our next speedrunner wastes no time in revealing that the run is fake. As soon as he loads into the world, he spawns directly in front of a ruined portal, and inside the chest is some of the craziest loot I have ever seen. He's only 15 seconds into the run. After that, he randomly decides to fight zombies next to him. And don't worry, he's not gonna die. Just look at the armor he has. Eventually he decides to take a trip over to the nether. But wait, why is he going back into the portal so soon? And how is he in the end? If you didn't catch that, it was a different nether portal than the one before, so it took him straight to the end. Once at the end, he builds up to each tower to break all the crystals. Then he just gets bored and hits them with his incredibly overpowered sword. While fake, this speedrun was hilarious. Our next speedrunner contains our first mobile speedrun of the day, and he also conveniently includes a timer in the top left corner, so we can see if he cuts the video. Our speedrunner makes his way into water and into a nearby village, which isn't too suspicious. And he goes to loot houses to try to find beds and maybe loot from some other chests. And when he finally reaches this house, he is greeted with some pretty overpowered loot, and this is starting to get a bit too suspicious. After putting on some armor and equipping his bow, our speedrunner exits the village just to find an end portal sitting on the grass. And on top of that, the end portal is already filled in with full Eyes of Ender. Our speedrunner then enters the end and starts to shoot the dragon with his incredibly overpowered bow. And after finally killing the ender dragon, he is at a miraculous time of under 4 minutes, which would literally be a world record if he wasn't cheating. Our next run starts off, and the first thing to notice is the extremely wide FOV used in the speedrun, which honestly seems to be a very smart strategy. And the speedrun starts off normally with our speedrunner starting to gather wood to go ahead and make some necessary tools. Wait, maybe I talked too soon. What is that random emerald box doing in the distance? Okay, this has gotta be one of the funniest things I've seen in a speedrun. Somehow this random pig just gave him a bunch of completely overpowered gear which he uses. Our speedrunner then makes his way over to another very strange looking statue in the distance. And like the first one, this is also fake, as it ends up being a giant ruined portal, accompanied by a random emerald tree, which is obviously not a real thing in Minecraft. After harvesting the tree, the speedrunner also finds a chest right underneath it, and this chest contains a netherite sword and a bunch of TNT for the speedrunner to use later, as well as a bunch of obsidian to conveniently finish the giant ruined portal that is definitely not real. Once he fills in the nether portal, our speedrunner makes his way over to the nether and straight away finds a bunch of gold in a random wall in the nether. He also finds a strange box that just so happens to contain a piglin for him to trade with. And what do you know? This piglin just so happens to drop full stacks of ender pearls. So now it's time for our speedrunner to make his way back over into the overworld. And once he spawns into it, our speedrunner makes his search to try to find the stronghold. But to nobody's surprise, he decides to take matters into his own hands by building it out all in the open by himself. And once he gets into the end, all our speedrunner has to do is somehow die on his own to finish off the speedrun. While fake, this was honestly hilarious, and I still don't know how the dragon was killed. We finally get a normal speedrun as this next guy spawns in a seemingly normal world. And this speedrunner even has a timer so we can make sure that the speedrun is real. He travels a bit off spawn and ends up finding a village. So he decides to loot the very first chest that he sees. And are you kidding me? Not this again. And after this, our speedrunner is on his way to find and locate the end portal. But what do you know? He instead decides to dig down at a random spot in the village, which actually drops him directly next to the end portal. Our speedrunner finally makes it to the end and uses the fireworks he got from the chest to easily move around. But the problem is that he still needs to kill the ender dragon. And let's just say he fails at this miserably. It's so funny that the speedrunner literally died while cheating. This next speedrun starts and we immediately notice something interesting. The speedrunner already has a world called fake Minecraft speedrun before he loads in. He's definitely not off to a good start. When he joins the world, everything seems to be normal at first, as our speedrunner starts to run around. But then he notices a random chest in the distance, which you guessed it, has some of the most overpowered loot that I've ever seen. The speedrunner takes the loot from the chest and begins to organize it in his inventory. And after that, he runs even farther to find random diamond blocks in the side of a cliff. And when he breaks them, he is led to a completely random room, which just so happens to have an end portal inside. And as soon as he gets into the end, our speedrunner changes his game mode to creative. Now our speedrunner is literally flying with his netherite sword and breaking all of the crystals. And after he successfully manages to break all of them, he kills the dragon and ends off the rest of his speedrun. This guy was definitely cheating. This next speedrunner literally exposes himself using a keyboard cam. The run starts off and the runner spawns in a good seed near an underwater crevice, where he begins to create a nether portal using the magma. And this is where the first sign of it being fake start to show up. The speedrunner appears to have his hands completely off his mouse for a brief second, yet he simultaneously places the flint and steel, which lights the nether portal on fire. How would it be possible if he never even clicked his mouse? Now he then spawns directly next to a bastion, where he gets some extremely lucky trades. And his seed also happens to have a fortress pearl distance away from the bastion, which is extremely rare. And this is where things get very fake. The speedrunner appears to crack his knuckles where both hands are clearly away from the keyboard and mouse, while his gameplay is showing him fighting blazes at the exact same time. Pause. Let's do a bit of digging because this is literally impossible. And after going to the official speedrun.com website, we see the 47th fastest speedrun ever, where the gameplay is shockingly similar to the speedrun we just saw. And it's clearly fake when you realize the speedrunner simply placed his keyboard cam over a speedrun that had already existed. Subscribe for even more fake Minecraft speedruns.